In today's brief video, I want to take a moment and talk to you guys about the importance of experiencing boredom after quitting smoking weed, and I want to share with you a few ways that you can manage or cope with that boredom, a very, very common withdrawal symptom after people quit smoking weed, quit vaping, quit drinking alcohol, whatever the substance may be. Now, if you wind up enjoying the content in today's video, be sure to check out the pinned comment or the video description to learn more about our paid and free program resources designed to help people quit. All right, so when it comes to boredom, there's probably about 3 or 4 reasons that it's important that you experience it when you first quit weed. Reason number 1 is because it's the boredom that's going to allow for the resetting of dopamine, or for the dopamine reset that needs to occur within the brain. If you're anything like me and you were addicted to weed, nicotine, and adult media content, an average night for you might have been smoking weed, getting high, hitting your vape, and watching adult media content all at once. Now, that's a lot of dopamine stimulation occurring in your brain, especially when you're doing that behavior over and over and over and over again. And every time you do that, every time you consume more weed, consume more adult media content, consume more nicotine, you're just setting that threshold for dopamine stimulation higher and higher and higher. So suddenly now, adult media content isn't as exciting unless I'm stoned. And being stoned isn't as exciting unless I'm combining it with alcohol, nicotine, online gambling, or adult media content. So a lot of times in addiction, what we do is we set this really high threshold for dopamine stimulation. Now, when we quit using substances, typically by the end of someone's journey with addiction, their brain is already in a state of dopamine deficit. And that's kind of a hard concept to understand because we're thinking drugs that gives us more dopamine, more dopamine, more dopamine, but that's not necessarily true. When you abuse substances, eventually your brain starts to down-regulate the production of dopamine and the receptor sensitivity to it. So you actually wind up in a state of dopamine deficit in the presence of addiction or substance abuse. So now here we are, we're quitting drugs, we've set a super high threshold for dopamine stimulation, and our body and our brain has now down-regulated the dopamine production and our receptor sensitivity to it. So what happens? You quit drugs, and now you're super, super bored. But this is a really, really good thing, because what you're doing by allowing yourself to be bored and by experiencing that boredom is you're allowing your brain to reset that threshold for dopamine sensitivity, production, and receptor activity. I apologize for the wind. It seems like it's getting windy out of nowhere here. And that's super important. And I tell people it's through the boredom that you're actually going to find things become exciting again. Because let me give you an example. Try sitting on your couch for 3 to 5 days straight, doing literally nothing. You're not scrolling your phone, you're not watching TV, you're just literally sitting on your couch, bored out of your mind. Now suddenly, going for a walk is going to become exciting again. Going to the gym might become exciting again. Going out to dinner with friends or family, something that you should enjoy doing, is going to become exciting again because you were so bored, right? But if you don't allow the space for that boredom, if you don't allow that reset through when it comes to the activity and the degree of activity that it takes to stimulate dopamine, things are not going to become exciting again in comparison to what, jerking off, smoking weed, hitting nicotine, drinking alcohol, online gambling was. So it's that boredom that allows for the healing to occur in your brain when it comes to dopamine and lowering that threshold for dopamine production. And again, just the act of being bored for a prolonged period of time is simply going to make other things exciting again because you haven't been doing anything. So that's really the first thing, understanding why the boredom's there and why the boredom's important. The second thing when it comes to coping with boredom is realizing that, so what? You're bored. Like, who cares? In the big picture, I hate to say it, But there's a lot of intense emotions that most human beings are going to experience throughout the course of life. Extreme sadness, there could be grief after the loss of a loved one, there could be extreme anxiety, extreme depression, right? You could have extreme physical pain, extreme psychological pain. In the big picture of life and the spectrum of emotions that we experience, being bored is not the worst thing in the world. And trust me, I understand it sucks. I understand being bored sucks. I really, really do. I don't personally like being bored. I'm not making a video sitting here saying, you know, learn how to sit with oneself and cope with the boredom. That's not what I'm saying. I know it sucks. But really, suck it up. Like, so what? You're bored. Are you really going to lose your mind over being bored? Are you really going to throw away all the progress that you've made in quitting smoking weed, quitting drinking alcohol, getting through the withdrawals, getting through all that nasty stuff because you're bored? You know, I think learning to deal and learning to cope, and to an extent learning to sit within emotions, is a very important part of achieving success in one's life, right? And this can translate to financial success, relationship success, success in one's physical health, right? I don't personally find the gym and walking the most exciting thing in the world, but I do those things every day, right? But I you know, not running from boredom is important, and a lot of people are incapable of doing that. And people's lack of ability to sit with boredom, to experience boredom, is often what leads them down very, very negative behaviors. Gambling, drinking, smoking, watching porn, mindlessly getting lost on social media, getting lost on Netflix, getting lost in adult media content. So I would just say to yourself, next time you're bored, to cope with it, say, okay, I'm bored. I don't know anyone that's ever died of boredom unless you're sitting in a prison in solitary confinement. That's bored. And that's the other thing too. And this is kind of my third tip for coping with boredom. There's a lot of things you can do today. There's actually probably a lot of things that you need to do. And when you first quit drugs, your brain is kind of focused on the drugs. Oh my God, I gotta go to the gas station and buy another vape. I gotta go to the dispensary and get more weed. There's a lot of other stuff you could do. Like, are you actually bored, or are you just being a boring person, right? You could go for a walk, you could sit outside, you could join a gym, you could go to a social event, you could start building an online business, you could start to learn a language online. In fact, there's so much access to so many things in today's world. I think sometimes we're so overstimulated that unless we're super stimulated, we mistake that for being bored, and we forget about the basic things that we could, or even in many cases should be addressing or should be doing. Clean your house. I don't know, buy some cleaning products online and clean your car, clean your house, make your bed, go learn a language, learn a new skill on YouTube, and then go try and make money off of that skill. Do anything, do something. But yeah, I think a lot of times people get this one-tracked mind in recovery that's like, oh, I gotta use the drug, I'm thinking about the drug. And it's like, no, there's a lot of other things you can do right now. There's a lot of other things you should do. Just do anything but that. Choose to do anything but the drug. Okay? Choose to do anything but the drug. And remember, whatever it is you choose, let's say going for a walk, for example. I choose to go walking instead of waking up and smoking weed every morning. Your brain is eventually going to get used to that repetition. That repetition is eventually going to start to stimulate dopamine again. That activity is eventually going to become more exciting to you over time. Okay? And eventually, that repeated activity is going to start to lay out new pathways in the brain. It takes about a year, but those new pathways will replace the old pathways that we laid out with addiction and substance abuse and substance use. So embrace the boredom, view the boredom as an opportunity to pursue and create something better for yourself. View the boredom for what it is. It's a dopamine reset for your brain, so being bored is part of the healing process. And take full advantage of it. Allow this time for yourself to heal. Allow this time for yourself to find your next opportunity and eventually create massive change in your life, which is hopefully what addiction and quitting drugs is for a lot of people. Hopefully it leads to a big change and a very positive one for people. Now, if this is something that you need help with or you enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to check out the pinned comment to learn about our paid and free program resources, including our free guide on ebook on how to quit smoking weed, how to overcome addiction. We have one-on-one coaching, and then we also have our Kick It Crave Less chewing gum supplement, a supplement that I personally designed and formulated and had manufactured to help people quit nicotine, weed, alcohol. It really helps reduce cravings across the board. It contains KSM-66 ashwagandha and NAC, N-acetylcysteine, two very natural, very powerful ingredients when it comes to reducing cravings, promoting focus, reducing stress, and heck, just the act of chewing gum helps to satisfy some of that oral fixation, right? Chewing gum, I guess, is less boring than not chewing gum, if you will. Anyways, check that out in the pinned comment or right there on YouTube shopping. All right, guys, until next time.